أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. صلوات ضعيفة ما فاطرين يعني. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Welcome to our second night of Shahr Ramadan programming on this delightful Sunday night. A bit cold, but otherwise, alhamdulillah wa shukr. Of course, as every night, we begin with Dua al-Iftitah. After that, we will have our keynote address with Samahat al-Dr. Ali Hilli. So, without further ado, let's welcome Sayyid Abu Hussein Azuz to the table to recite Dua al-Iftitah for us. ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. اللهم صل. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى، وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء، وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين، وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريخ المستصرخين، موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر، وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم واجعله الداعية إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكاس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر، وحج بيتك الحرام، وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا. وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت، بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل به غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك ووقف السفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك يرجون الجواز إلى ساحة رحمتك ونعمتك. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا من أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه، فمن للمذنب المقصر إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبه وآثامه. إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاصين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون ونحن عبيدك المذنبون، فارحمنا برحمتك واغفر لنا ذنوبنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات ومن مات على الإيمان، وإلى أرواح الشهداء والمقاومين، نهدي للجميع ثواب السورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
افلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنتم عمو أبو حسين. طيب الله أنفاسكم. Thank you for your recitation. Inshallah, now we will proceed to the main part of our program tonight, which is a discussion with our guest, Samahat al-Diktor Ali al-Hilli. I'm going to give an introduction to Dr. Ali that I should have given yesterday, but inshallah, it's not too late. Dr. Ali Hilli is an Islamic lecturer and author. He holds a PhD in bioinformatics and a master's degree in Islamic studies, blending an academic and religious background in his work. He is the author of 101 Ways to Concentrate in Prayer, which I highly recommend everyone grabs a copy of, especially in this month. If you're sitting there thinking about, what you're going to eat for iftar instead of, praying while you're praying. A widely recognized book that provides practical strategies to enhance focus and spirituality in Salah. Currently, he serves as the director of Dar al-Islam Center in London, where he plays a key role in fostering Islamic education and community engagement. His work focuses on practical spirituality, mindfulness and worship, and navigating the challenges of modern life as a Muslim. In addition to his religious and academic contributions, he is also a trustee at the humanitarian charity Noor Relief Fund, actively supporting charitable initiatives to assist those in need. So, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Ali to the stage with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآله أحسنتم. So I didn't introduce yesterday something that I have invented called the salawatometer. And the salawatometer is really an examination, a measurement of how the audience are awake. And so when I start my talks, usually, of course, people do salawat, but then I measure that salawat. And if the salawat is very weak, I think the audience are tired, they've been forced to come, they want to tick a box. So therefore, it's an indication for me. And I can safely say that my salawatometer says that it's you guys are tired, and the salawat was very weak. So we're going to start this again, and I want you to show me that, inshallah, you're up for the next half an hour or so in trying to seek proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on these holy nights. So we start again. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. Ahsantum, much better, much better. Yes, it's great if you can come forward. If you can't, that's okay. If you need to sit down in the chair, that's fine. Even the brothers sitting there, can you come to the front? If you want to sit in the front of the other chairs, that's okay. But I feel quite lonely, although the brothers here are quite warm. Barakallahu feekum, ahsantum. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. تقبل الله أعمالكم إن شاء الله in these particular nights, these holy nights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. And then يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. And that's the aim, isn't it? We spoke yesterday about hearing the soul, and the aim is for us to extinguish this desire that we have in order for us to satisfy our animal existence and focus on our spiritual existence. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask Him to help us to continuously help us to try and focus on this particular compartment, the compartment of the soul that really yearns for us to hear it. So today, my dear brothers and sisters, I want to have a discussion with you. And again, I do emphasize the word discussion because I don't want this to be a lecture. I want this to be more interactive. And inshallah, we want to discuss something quite profound, in my opinion, that hasn't really been discussed a lot from the pulpit. And I think this is a fundamental aspect if we were to try and understand the soul. So yesterday we talked about hearing the soul, but how much do we know of the soul? What is a nafs? And in order for us to understand the nafs, we have to try and think about the idea that knowing ourselves. Yes, you know, there's the famous narration that man arafa nafsah faqad arafa rabbah. And if you get to comprehend yourself, then you get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the mission, isn't it? We want to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to get closer to Him. We want to make sure that before we die, we have had a glimpse of God, at least in our worship or in our daily lives. So today, inshallah, for the next half an hour or so, I want to invite you to go on a journey to really understand the soul and understand your own soul and nafs. And part of the process of understanding the soul is that we comprehend the thought, okay, and what is a thought. Now, before we move into the phenomena of a thought or al-khawatir or al-fikr, right? I want us just to take a pause and think about the compartments of the soul. So today's talk, I must admit, is going to be a bit dry. Yani not enough water in it. It's a bit dry. The reason is because the topic of the soul can be a bit dry, but I need you continuously to be awake with me. Yes, and inshallah, if you we can have a bit of an interactive session during the talk as well. But I just want you to bear with me, okay? At least for the first 10 minutes, in order for us to understand the compartments of the soul. And it's important as a Sa'im in this holy month, as we said, if I want to hear my soul, I need to understand the soul. Yeah? You guys with me? Yeah, I need to really understand my soul. Unfortunately, we don't have like an MRI scan. You know what an MRI scan is? You know, when you put the body into a scanner and then you can see on the screen, you can see the different parts of the body, like you see the brain. I wish there is a spiritual scanner where you put your body in and you can see the soul. And you see how weak the soul is or how strong the soul is. And you see which part of the soul needs strengthening and which part actually is okay. But we don't have that. Okay, so what we need to do is we really need to make sure that we delve into the soul and try to hear it as much as we can, as we spoke about yesterday. Now, some mystics and some philosophers talk about 3 compartments of the soul. Okay, so there's 3 main compartments of the soul. The first one is it's called Al-Quwwa Al-Aqliyya. You guys had heard of this? Al-Quwwa Al-Aqliyya, the power of the intellect. Yes, the power of the intellect. Al-Quwwa Al-Aqliyya. That's one compartment of the soul. The other compartment of the soul is known as Al-Quwwa Al-Ghadabiyya, the power of anger or emotions. That's the second part of the soul. And the third part of the soul is called Al-Quwwa Al-Shahawiyya, the power of desire. Yes, the power of desire. So we've got 3 components, okay? We've got Al-Quwwa Al-Aqliyya, which is the power of intellect, the power of anger and the power of desire. It's a really interesting. One philosopher put this as in a kingdom. Okay, so every single one of us has a kingdom inside us. Okay, and the minister of the kingdom, okay, the minister, so the prime minister or the president, is the intellect. He is the al-quwwa al-aqliya. Yes, is the minister. He runs everything. The king is the heart of the kingdom. And then you've got the anger, the quwwa al-ghadabiyya, anger is the policeman inside the kingdom. And you've got al-quwwa al-shahawiyya, which is the desire. At that time, they called them the tax collectors. So these people always go and collect tax, and they can be a bit annoying. All right. So in a kingdom, you still with me? Yeah. In a kingdom, everyone has a kingdom inside them. So you have the aql, which is the minister, the president. You have the king, who is the heart. And you have also the policemen or the army, who are what? The anger. Okay? And you have the tax collectors, who are the desire in your kingdom. And he says, look, if the heart and the intellect, they start working together. The heart and the intellect, they work. So the king works with the minister. And the minister is really important, which is the aql. The minister is really important. And the minister does all the negotiations. The heart is also important, the king. But they start working together. And it's vital that you see that particular relationship. If they work together, the policeman and the tax collector are what? Are doing their job. They're steady. Your anger is steady. You don't get much anger. Your desires are controlled. Okay? And the tax collector does his job. Now, when there is a dispute between the heart and the intellect, and some philosophers put them together, the heart and the intellect. Some say the heart is different to the intellect. It's a discussion for another day. But when there is some sort of uncertainty within your intellect, when your intellect is gone through some sort of problems or issues, or you don't tap into your intellect, okay? You don't tap into your intellect. Al-quwwa al-aqliyya. You don't tap into it. We become like animals, as we said before, because the difference between animals and humans is that we have the aql. But if we don't use the aql, if we imprison the aql, if I take the minister and the king and put them into the prison, what happens to the desire and the anger? What happens to the policeman, tax collector? There's no one to control them. So they go wild. The policeman starts to kill people on the streets. They go and use their power. The policeman goes and uses their power and abuses their power and says, I am the best. The military start to use their own power and abuse it. And that's what happens when you have excessive anger. And what happens when you have excessive desire? The tax collector goes and takes a lot of people's money unjustly because there's no one to control him. And that is the desire when we start doing things that are uncontrollable in our desire. So the idea here in the kingdom is that if you imprison the aql and the king, then everything falls. Everything gets destructed. But if you have the aql and the king in control, them talking to each other, then everything falls into place. And you have a steady kingdom where the rule of law, there is justice in that kingdom. Do you guys understand this parable? Yeah? If you understand it, say salawat. I told you it's going to be a bit dry today, but I just need you to be with me, inshallah. So, in order for us to balance our soul, remember the soul needs balancing. The excessiveness of the soul, when it's not balanced, it will it will mean that the intellect is imprisoned. And the deficiency of these faculties in the soul means also the intellect is imprisoned. We need to balance the soul. The soul needs balancing. It's like you have a circle that is your soul, okay? And then what you need to do is you need the dot within the circle to be right in the middle for you to really get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if the circle goes all the way up and then goes all the way down and then left and right, means your soul is imbalanced. It means your desires have gone excessive. It means your anger has gone excessive or has gone deficient. Because anger is important, isn't it? You know, why is anger important? So for us to find out what's just and what's unjust. Yes? When we look at what's happening in Gaza, for example, we know who's the aggressor and who's being oppressed. Otherwise, if we don't have any anger inside us, we won't know. Okay? So anger is important, but I need to balance it. Now, when it comes to the intellect, and intellect also needs to be balanced. When it comes to the intellect, you have when my intellect is deficient, I don't really use it much. They call this stupidity. Yes? When my intellect is deficient, is stupidity. When my intellect is excessive, I excessively use my intellect, and there are evil doers out there, dictators and people who are have excessively used their intellect. It's called sly. You've heard of slyness? Yes? They are sly people who use their intellect excessively for evil purposes. That's bad. Stupidity is bad. What we need is in the middle. And in moderation, we need to use our intellect, which is called al-hikmah, wisdom. That is what wisdom is. That is what hikmah is. When someone is hakim, Luqman was hakim. Luqman wasn't a prophet, he was a noble person. Luqman was hakim. He was a wise individual. He used his intellect in moderation, not to slyness too much to cause evil, and not use it at all, be an animal just for stupidity, right? But in wisdom, in balancing. Okay? So I need my intellect to be what? Balanced. And when I balance it, it is wisdom. Now anger, the shahwa al-ghadabiyya, which is anger. Okay? If it's deficient, if I don't use my anger at all, it is called cowardice. I'm a bit of a coward. Yeah. If I don't use it at all, my anger, I'm a coward. If I excessively use it, it's recklessness. I'm reckless when I get excessive anger. It is a reckless thing. Have you seen reckless behaviors? But in moderation, it's called courage. Yes? What's courage in Arabic? Shuja'. Yes? This is what Imam Hussein salamullahi alayhi did. His anger was in moderation. If Imam Hussein salamullahi alayhi had deficiency in his anger, he would be, la samahallah, he was a coward. But he wasn't. And his anger didn't exceed, and he would have been reckless. But no, his anger was in moderation, and he was shuja'. And that's where I need to balance my soul. This is where the policeman needs to be balanced. Yes, he needs to be kept in moderation. You still with me? I haven't lost you? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now the third one is what shahwa? Which one is it? Shahwal? No, al-ghadabiyya, we talked about it. Shahwal? Not shahwa. Al-quwwa al-shahwiyya. I've told you the answer. Quwwa al-shahwiyya, which is what? The power of desire. Ahsantum. The power of desire. So, if I am deficient in the power of desire, if I am deficient, This is called, I'm lethargic. Just like, not really using my desire in the best possible way. I'm lethargic in all particular angles. If I excessively use it, it's called greediness. I am greedy. But in moderation, it's called restraint. And again, when we look at the lives of our Imams and the Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayhi, they had restraint. If we look at all these three components, they had wisdom, yes, and they had courage, and they had restraint in everything they do. And these are three very important components, my dear brothers and sisters, if we want to feed the soul. If we want to hear the soul and feed it, I've got to make sure I balance it. And I balance it with wisdom, I balance it with courage, and I balance it with restraint. Yes? Because my desires can take me all different places. And my anger can take me to all different places. A lot of trouble happens when it happens with excessive anger. A lot of problems, family issues, lots of community problems, society issues, work issues, mental health issues happen. A lot of them happen because of excessive anger. And of course, when I navigate in my life, I need to be wise. And that's wisdom. Now, if I was to balance my soul by being wise and being courageous and having restraint, then I establish what is known as adala, which is justice. I know this is all very, again, I keep on saying this, forgive me for this, but I need you to, I think the community of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad needs to be up there. When I go to different places, and I we can talk about things that are important, but they are, a bit not that intellectual, shall I say. But when I try to visit different communities, I want to raise the level. Together we can raise the level, especially understanding the self, understanding the soul. Okay? So forgive me for trying to delve into the soul a bit, and it's a bit dry, but it's important that we get to understand this. If we balance the soul, yes, if we were to balance the soul, what we achieve is justice. Plato, he says something really interesting, and some say Plato could be a prophet. He says, when the faculty of justice develops in man, all the other faculties and powers of the soul are illuminated by it. And these faculties and powers all acquire light from each other. So, when we balance the soul, we establish justice. And that is the great compass and barometer that we need in our life when we actually establish justice. Now, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we've delved a bit into the soul, just scratching the surface today. Okay, we're scratching the surface. We understood now that balancing the soul is really important. Now, I just want you to have that in mind, but let's just try to understand the intellect, the aql. Okay, I'm not going to delve into the aql, but I'm going to take one compartment which I'm really fascinated by, and this is the area that I want to focus today's talks in, which is the concept of a thought, the concept of al-khawatir, al-khatira. Okay? Now, I want someone to tell me here, what is a thought? I know people watching online, you might want to say it in the comments, but what is a thought? What is a khatir? A thought. What is a thought? Something you think about. Okay. So something you think about. Yeah? Anyone else? Hadith ma'an nafs. So it's a dialogue of the self. Yeah. So continuously I have these ideas that pop in my head. Now I'm going to ask you a question. How many thoughts do you think you have per day? So when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes until you shut your eyes. How many thoughts go inside your head? Roughly. I mean, scientists have come up with numbers. Okay? So give me a rough figure. Just shout out a rough figure. How many thoughts do you have per day? 50,000. 50. Okay. 10,000 thoughts. This is like an auction. Anyone else? Bidding. You got 50, we got 10. How many thoughts, كم خواطر واحد تكون بباله يعني how many كم فكرة تيجي بباله باليوم؟ Huh? No, it's impossible. He says only at night these thoughts come in. Impossible, because you cannot function without thoughts. You cannot function. When you wake up in the morning, thoughts start to come in. Say, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go and brush my teeth. I'm going to have my coffee. I'm going to go and get up. I've got my job. All these are moved by your thoughts, are coming in. Yes? They're pieces of information. How many of them do you think you have per day? So we've got 10, we've got 50. That's quite a large difference. How many? Yeah, how many? How many? Sorry? 437, just 437 or 1,000? 430, yes. No, don't ask ChatGPT. Hundreds and thousands. Okay, let me put you out of misery. So scientists have gone back and forth regarding that. Initially, they said around 70 to 80,000 thoughts per day. But recently, a big study, quite a big study, has revealed that no, we actually have only around 6 to 7,000 per day. 1,000 thoughts per day. Now, what's really interesting about this is that 95% of these thoughts, 95% of these thoughts are repetitive every day. We come up with only 5% of new thoughts. So what I mean by that, so when you wake up in the morning, you get up on the exactly the same side of the bed. Have you ever got out from the other side? You always get up from the same side. You probably do the same thing every day. You go to the bathroom, you take your, use the facilities, you take your toothbrush, you use with the same hand of the toothbrush. You open the door with the same hand. So you're not thinking the thoughts are all automatic. It's all very similar lifestyle. It's repetitive. It's systematic, isn't it? And then you put on your clothes, probably the same style of clothes. You don't really change. Tomorrow I'm not going to come with a t-shirt here. It's the same style, okay? So it's the same style, same outfit. And then you go and have either your breakfast, your coffee. What's your morning routine? Not in Ramadan, but in other times. And then you go into your car, and then you go to the same routes. You take the same route. We don't really change routes. We take the same route towards work. And then once I get to work, I talk to the same people, and I know I don't like this person, I like this person. So he's my friend and he's not my friend. Yeah? Because this person annoys me. And I engage with the same people. I usually do the very similar thing at work. Work sometimes comes repetitive, okay? And then I go back in the car and I go back in the same route. And I go home, I see my children, or if I'm not married, but it's the same routine. I have dinner, but I don't really have a variety of different dinners. And then when I am having dinner, I don't focus on the food. I'm focusing on TV or on my mobile phone. And I'm going through Instagram. And I'm either seeing Zelensky and Trump make a comic out of everything. Okay? And then I just try to laugh. And then it's the same routine. Only 5% changes. We are very robotic, guys. And that's not how we work. We should be creative. We should function in our lives. It's really not. And so when you come and delve into this, you think, wow, it is true that I am quite robotic. I've become very robotic in my life. It's all very systematic. And then next thing you know, you're 45 years old, you're 50, 60, 70, and then you're down. 80. I'm not saying, inshallah, you get into 100 or more. But then you'll go to down under in the grave, and that's it. And then God says, how much of this life did you pay attention to, rather than just it being all very automatic? 95% just automatic. And there's been studies on this, guys. It's not me talking. You can ask ChatGPT if you don't trust me. Now ChatGPT is the master of information. So if a speaker comes and says, you say, I don't believe them, I go to ChatGPT. Yeah. So, these are thoughts. And for us, in order for us to understand, just going back a bit, in order for us to really comprehend the intellect, my question I want to ask for the remainder of this talk is, what's the relationship between a thought and an intellect? So if I get all these 95% thoughts, how is that affecting my heart and my intellect? And affecting my soul? Because I need to sustain wisdom, hikmah. I need to balance my intellect. Okay? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there's a narration that says, Al-Uqul a'immatul afkar. The intellects are the masters of thoughts. Wal-afkar a'immatul qulub. And thoughts are the masters of the hearts. Wal-qulub a'immatul hawas. And the hearts are the masters of the senses. Wal-hawas a'immatul a'dha. And the senses are the masters of the limbs. So what we take from this hadith is that the intellects are the masters of the thoughts. There is a relationship between the thoughts and the intellect. Whatever my thoughts, the nature of my thoughts, it affects my intellect. But having to manage the thoughts, it's so difficult. Now, I want to do an experiment today with you guys. Okay? I want you for the next 10 seconds, just go quiet, please. Next 10 seconds. And I want you to try really, really hard to have a thought. You can bring up your thoughts. Have a thought and think about anything you like. Anything. Except one thing. And I don't want you to think about this. One thing. And that is a pink elephant. I don't want you to think of an elephant that is colored pink. But I want you to think about anything else you want in the next 10 seconds. So no pink elephant. Go. Okay. How many thought of a pink elephant? You guys didn't think of a pink elephant? At all? You didn't think of a pink elephant? Did you think of a pink elephant? Yeah. If you didn't think of a pink elephant, you have a very, very excellent management of your mind. Because see what happens in our minds is that when someone tells you to think about, do not think about this, the mind starts to think about it. And it shows how difficult it is to manage our thoughts. Now, if I was to tell you now for the next 10 seconds, another very quick experiment. I want you to count the number of thoughts you get in the next 10 seconds. Would you be able to do that? No? You wouldn't be able to do that? Try. For the next 10 seconds, count the number of thoughts that come on your head. Okay. How many did you get around? One? One thought? Okay. 10? You got quite a lot of thoughts so one per second you got. 9. Yeah. What about you guys? You couldn't? Around 4? That's interesting. Do you know why? Because is this the first time you delve into your thoughts? Because is this the first time you counted your thoughts? Huh? But it's interesting, isn't it? Because your thoughts actually, they move you every single moment of your life. They are the ones that navigate you. So today you are, at work. No, today's Sunday. You are at home, maybe. And then a thought came and said, should I go to Masjid Al-Adham? Should I not? And then you decided you will go. And then you came here and you moved away. You have been navigated through these particular thoughts. But it's interesting now you're actually delving into it. But it shows that we've been on auto mode for a long time. We allow our thoughts to take us wherever we take us. And as I said, 95% of them are on autopilot. So we know there is a relationship between the thoughts and the intellect. But the question is, how can we manage these particular thoughts? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay. I'm going to try to, yes. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm. I mean, we can have a discussion later, a more in-depth discussion. But just to say what the brother has said. He said there is two dimensions to a thought. There's one horizontal and there's vertical. The horizontal are the ones that we are not conscious of. So our daily lives, the things we do, and the vertical one is when we delve into it. And I actually disagree with that. I think that we have to be aware and conscious of all our thoughts. That's why there is. Inshallah, in a later night, we'll talk about these 4 stages of being in a state of conscious strengthening of the soul. So there is, of course, al-muraqabah, and then there is al-muhasabah. And when you delve into al-muraqabah, what is muraqabah? You've heard of al-muraqabah, right? And when you observe your thoughts, when you observe yourself, it's the observing of your thoughts 24/7. I'm not saying you just keep on thinking about your thoughts without knowing what to do, but you know what is you are present at the time when the thoughts come in. So you're not on auto mode. And when you are present about what thought comes in to your mind, you can make sure that you take the good thoughts and you allow the bad thoughts to disappear. And inshallah we can delve into this some other time. But I understand what you're saying. But I do believe that it should always be that vertical where we are constant monitoring of our thoughts. If we are true mu'mineen, and if I want my soul to strengthen, I've got to make sure that I decide which particular thoughts I take and which particular thoughts I do not take. Okay? So, actually, while we're on this topic, what time did I start? What time did I start? 9 o'clock? Okay, so I have around 10 minutes, inshallah. While we're on this topic, it's really essential just to think about this. So, think about this analogy, this example. If your thoughts are like a stream of water in the river, there are a lot of thoughts that you are getting, okay? And, these particular thoughts range from good or bad thoughts. For example, I'm watching a film and a thought comes in from my desires and says, this indecent image, have a look, continuously have a look. Perhaps the whispers of the shaitan. Yes? And so I try to really, if I'm conscious of my thoughts, I say, la, this is the whispers of the shaitan. Or if I'm not conscious of my thoughts, I say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Let me satisfy my desire. So that stream of river, the best people amongst us are the ones that always observe the river, but they don't tend to delve into the sea, to the river, and swim with it. Because once you delve into it and swim with it, you get lost. But the best people amongst us are those who sit down and just observe the stream and say, oh, this is a really good water. It's such a peaceful water. And I know where I can take that water and where I shouldn't. And it's just about observing these particular. And it's the same as when you sit down in front of a highway. There are a lot of cars coming in, right? A lot of cars are going. Some people just go and chase after a particular car and chase after another car. But the best people amongst us, imagine these cars are our thoughts. The best people amongst us, when we step back and look at these thoughts. This is what they call mindfulness. When you sit back and just observe these particular thoughts. Okay? Inshallah, we can delve more into these particular actions. But I just want to go back to, I want to just end with this relationship. Remember the soul, we're just talking about the soul and the intellect and the relationship between a thought and an intellect. And I want to delve into the verses of the Quran, the ones that relate to this particular topic. So before that, there is a interesting scientist in history, Islamic scientist called Al-Suyuti, who talks about thought into action. So what actually he says, Al-Hajiz is a sudden and fleeting thought that comes and goes before one can consider it. So it's a bit like what the brother says, just like a fleeting thought, comes and goes. You don't even think about it much. But then al-khatir is the next step. Al-khatir is a thought that we give attention and consideration. And then if you want to take this thought even further, it's called hadith al-nafs. So you start to have a dialogue, as the brother also said earlier. It's a dialogue inside you. Yes? So for example, you get a thought that you've entered the home and you go upstairs, you come from work and you go upstairs, you see your bedroom, it's an absolute tip. It's bedroom is, do you guys have this absolute tip? Or is this English? British? Okay, so you don't know what absolute tip means? No. All right. So so you go in the bedroom and it's a mess. It's messy. Ahsant. It's a messy bedroom. And your wife, you've told your wife that you always want a clean bedroom. You always want a clean bedroom. But you come from work and you see it an absolute tip. It's really messy. What happens then? When you observe this, a thought comes into your head. Correct? And says, this thought starts to talk to you. It's an inner dialogue. And this says, well, what's going on here? This is a violation of your marriage. Okay, you've told your wife that you want your bedroom to always be clean, and it's not clean now. So a thought comes in. What you're doing is first it comes as a hajiz, and then al-khatir, you've actually taken it into consideration. Then there is a hadith al-nafs. There's a dialogue going on inside you. It's saying, what's going on here? You're having a dialogue with the thought itself. You're entertaining the thought. And then the final one is called al-ham wal-azm, with the decision and determination to put the thought into action. If it's so important to you, then you go and do al-ham wal-azm. So you're going to take that thought and put it into action. So you say, she hasn't cleaned the thought. I'm going to go and she hasn't cleaned the room. So I'm going to take that thought and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put it into action. So you go downstairs and you start shouting. You say, شنو هاي؟ ليش الغرفة ما منظفة يا؟ And then you lose it. Because you've taken the thought into action. Do you get what I mean? So this is the thought into action. That we get the certain thoughts that are just al-hajis, just goes. And then you go al-khatir, where you're taking it into consideration. And then hadith al-nafs, you start to have a dialogue within you. And then al-ham wal-azm. It's really important, guys. I just want you to focus on what's happening here. Okay? And your thoughts. And these particular transitions is really important for us to understand them. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talks about thoughts in the Holy Quran. He talks in chapter 20 verse 67. He says, فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً مُوسَى. فَأَوْجَسَ. أوجس, and he had that thought inside him. خِيفَةً Musa. This apprehension did Musa. Okay? Another one, when the nafs provides bad suggestions, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانِ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. How does the soul starts to do waswasa? It's through thoughts. This waswas comes from comes from what? Comes from shaitan, doesn't it? So So it says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. The shaitan knows, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that the shaitan comes and does these thoughts inside you. Okay? وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. I mentioned this verse yesterday. The shaitan also comes in a form of a thought. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا, those people who are muttaqeen, إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا. If the waswas of the shaitan comes in their ear, they know this is the shaitan. So, going back to this example, I go to my bedroom and I see it a mess. A thought comes in, it's probably a shaitanic thought because he wants to create this hostility between you and your wife. So he comes in and says, and you've taken it as a khatar, and then it becomes a dialogue inside you. Those people who are muttaqeen, they know this is the thought of the shaitan. إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. This ta'if that comes from the shaitan, تَذَكَّرُوا, they become conscious. فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ, and then they become observant. Yes? So, this particular stage of the inner dialogue, you've got to understand that once you do this inner dialogue, you've got to examine yourself. Is this a satanic thought or is it a good thought? And this is where you use your intellect. Some people say, well, how am I supposed to know? This is the time when you use your intellect. Do you see the association between the thought and the intellect? A thought pops in. By the way, are thoughts based on, are thoughts mine or they're an external inference? Are my thoughts mine? Is it a result of me or they've come from the external world? The result of the brain. Brain produces a lot of things, but is it me? So if I was to describe you, who are you? Will you say, I am my thoughts? I am my mind? Yeah, your mind belongs to you, but there's a lot of things that come. So for example, we just said, the waswas of the shaitan comes in the form of a thought. But that's not you. Shaitan comes and whispers in your ear. It says, ترى هذا خوش فيلم جيد هذا روح شوفه زين هاي خوش مشاهد هنا شوفه ليش لا ماكو أحد بالغرفة. There's no one in the room. Why don't you watch this scene? When you go up in the bedroom and you see it a mess, the shaitan comes and says, oh Ali, you know your wife promised you, go and shout at her. This is not you. This is the shaitan. You've got to be observant that these thoughts are not all of them this is your making. Of course they can. You're influenced by your external environment. What you see affects your soul. What you observe affects your thoughts. So it's not. So your thoughts are not you. And so when we have these particular thoughts, in that stage of the inner dialogue, I've got to be conscious if I am al-muttaqi. I've got to say, what is this thought? Is this a good thought or a bad thought? If it's a good thought, how do you assess if it's a good thought or a bad thought? You tap into your intellect. And your intellect tells you. And it's a jewel we have inside us. The intellect says, احمل أخاك على 70 محمل. When you've gone to that bedroom, ورحت للغرفة وشفتها هوسة شوي عراقي, right? شفتها هوسة, قلت هاي زوجتي ما منظفة الغرفة. I've gone to the bedroom and I see it, it's all messy. A thought comes in and says, oh my God, go and shout at your wife. This is an inner dialogue. Al-Muttaqi, what does he do? He goes back and says, the narration says, احمل أخاك على 70 محمل. Give your brother 70 excuses. So I'm going to give my wife 70 excuses. Maybe she was ill today. Maybe she didn't have time. Maybe she was busy. 70 excuses. That is what the intellect will suggest to you. But the shaitan, in a form of a thought, comes and says, no, go and have a fight with her. Do you see the difference? And this is where when we get a thought, we tap into the intellect. A lot of us have a thought imprison the intellect. Do you remember the kingdom? We take the minister or the president and we put it in prison. So we allow the anger, the tax collector. This time, in this particular example, is the anger, isn't it? The police to go wild. When you go downstairs and start shouting at your wife, this is the police. The police is gone out of control because the intellect, you've imprisoned it. Have I lost you? Yeah? You've imprisoned the intellect. And you say, why, wailah? Have you guys, I know it's happened to me, have you guys, when you got angry and then you calm down, you regret that you've got angry? Have you had that? That's exactly what's happening, because when you get angry, the police is gone wild. But then when you calm down, the intellect has been released from prison. And so the intellect tells you, La Ali, Ya wailah, lo ma amsawi hichi. It's best if you didn't do that. If you didn't say this, if you didn't shout like that. If only you had me present with you and not inside the prison, then this wouldn't have happened. My final point, okay, because I've run out of time completely. My final point is practically how can I tap into my intellect? So again, going to that example, I go up and I see this mess. I get a thought. It could be a shaitanic thought. You will get a thought. If you get that thought, doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you got a thought. Shaitan has come. Okay? Shaitan used to whisper in Adam's ear, he whispered. It says in the Quran. Yes? So he comes to the prophets, he comes to everyone. He came and suggested this. Now, how can you be vigilant and tap into your intellect? One of the best things to do, and it's a very, very practical thing to do. At that moment where you feel the anger is boiling, you know the water when you put it under starts to boil? You feel a bit of anger because it's hitting your ego. خصوصاً الرجل, the man, has got such a strong ego. And that's threatened my ego. How dare she not clean the room? Okay? The best thing to do is take deep breaths. I know this is so simple. But wallahi, it works. Try it. Take around 10 deep breaths. At that moment, 3 seconds or 4 seconds, breathe in from your nose. 8 seconds, you breathe out from your mouth. It brings you in the moment, in the present moment, in the now, takes you towards the now. And so your whole body starts to relax. Your heart starts to relax because your heart starts to pump very, very fast. Your whole physical body starts to relax. And then you tap in the intellect, you're putting it into prison, but when you start to breathe, you take it out of. And you say, la, I need you, oh intellect. Tell me what to do. Intellect says, 70 mahmal. احمل أخاك على 70 محمل. Take a deep breath. It really works, honestly. It's as simple as that. And there's a narration from the Prophet that says, if you feel like you're going to get angry, what do you do? If you're standing up, you sit down. إذا قايم اقعد. وإذا اقعد قوم. If you're sitting down, stand up. Change your environment. If you're in that room, change it. Go to another room. Go to your garden. شوية, just try to relax. Take deep breaths. Maybe they also say take a cold shower. Do something that is different. Because later on you'll regret not doing that. All of these actions takes you back to the intellect. Because al-haywan, ajallakumullah, the animal doesn't take deep breaths. Yes, when it wants to do evil, something evil. It just goes and does it because it lacks intellect. What we have is when we try and relax, we tap into our intellect and we make good decisions. We really will make good decisions. So in summary, we need to tap into the soul. We need to understand the self. We need to understand the soul. We talked about the soul and how to balance the soul. And these 3 compartments, the intellect, the anger and desire. And we talked about the kingdom inside us. And for us not to imprison the intellect. But then we examined what is our thoughts. What's thoughts? We have 6,000 to 7,000 thoughts per day. 95% are automatic, right? And when the thoughts come in, we've got to be vigilant of the thought. We've got to tap into the intellect rather than allowing the intellect to be imprisoned. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us all, inshaAllah, to continuously use our intellect for the better good. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in this holy month to strengthen our soul. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us, to guide us, to hear our soul, to continuously nourish it with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with qira'at al-Quran, with continuously giving charity, with helping others, with helping people in community and society. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the arrival of the 12th Imam, ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.